Analysis of sadistic behaviors. Sadism, named after the Marquis de Sade, is fundamentally characterized by the tendency to derive pleasure or gratification from the pain or suffering of others. This suffering can be physical, emotional, or psychological. What makes this trait particularly compelling and disturbing is the intentional nature of the harm inflicted solely for the sadist's enjoyment or sense of control. The spectrum of sadism. Sadistic behavior is not limited to extreme criminal acts. It exists on a spectrum in the general population. This is often described in two main forms. Sexual sadism. This is classified as a paraphilic disorder, when the intense sexual arousal derived from inflicting suffering causes distress, impairment, or involves a non-consenting person. Non-sexual or general sadism. This refers to the pleasure derived from others' pain in non-sexual contexts. However, psychologists continue to recognize and study these personality traits, often linking them to manipulative, hostile, and controlling behaviors. Sadism and the dark tetrad. In personality psychology, sadism has gained recognition as a distinct trait that complements the dark triad, a constellation of socially aversive traits that includes narcissism, grandiosity, entitlement, and a need for admiration. Machiavellianism, manipulativeness, deceit, and a cynical view of morality. Psychopathy, lack of empathy, impulsivity, and antisocial behavior. Sadism is often added to create the dark tetrad. Research suggests that sadism predicts unprovoked aggression and cruelty, even when accounting for the other three traits. The critical distinction is the motivation. While a psychopath may harm someone for profit or to achieve a goal, a sadist harms them because they enjoy witnessing the victim's suffering. Key sadistic traits. Sadism manifests in various ways, all centered on achieving dominance and enjoying the victim's distress. Lack of empathy. A sadist does not feel distress or guilt when others suffer. Instead, they feel a rewarding sense of pleasure. Cruelty and humiliation. They may use verbal abuse, sarcasm, bullying, or social humiliation to make targets feel inferior. Obsession with control. In relationships or positions of power, they may exert unusually harsh, demanding, and controlling treatment over those under their influence. Fascination with violence. They often show an excessive interest in weapons, torture, or media involving violence and suffering. Some psychologists, like Theodore Millon, categorize non-sexual sadism into four subtypes: tyrannical, brutalizing to force submission; enforcing, punishing in the public interest like a harsh supervisor; explosive, unpredictable fury and rage; and spineless cruelty arising from insecurity and cowardice. The psychology of sadism highlights a profound and often indiscriminate pleasure derived from the suffering of others, setting it apart as a unique and destructive element of human personality. The neurobiology and psychology of sadistic pleasure. To add more depth to the analysis of sadistic behaviors, it's essential to look at the underlying psychological and neurobiological mechanisms that drive the pleasure derived from inflicting pain. Psychological drivers. Power and self-esteem. While deriving pleasure from pain seems counterintuitive to healthy social functioning, for the sadist, the act serves crucial psychological needs: sense of power and dominance. Sadism is often a compensatory mechanism. By making another person suffer, the sadist feels overwhelmingly powerful and superior. This feeling of control over another person's emotional or physical state validates their self-worth, particularly if they harbor deep-seated feelings of inadequacy or helplessness. Dehumanization. Sadists often employ psychological tactics to dehumanize their victims. Seeing the victim as less than human, an object rather than a person, removes the inhibitory effect of empathy and guilt, making cruelty morally acceptable to the perpetrator. Revenge fantasies. For some, sadism may be rooted in past experiences of being a victim. Inflicting pain on others, even unrelated people, can be a way to symbolically reverse the roles and gain retribution for their own historical suffering. Neurobiological basis. The reward system. Emerging research suggests that the gratification sadists feel has a measurable neurobiological basis, essentially hijacking the brain's reward pathways. When a non-sadistic person witnesses someone else in pain, areas of the brain associated with empathy, like the anterior insula and anterior cingulate cortex, are activated, triggering an aversion response. Studies have shown that when sadists inflict or witness distress, the ventral striatum, a key part of the brain's reward circuit that is normally activated by things like food, money, or sex, shows increased activity. Aggressive pleasure. This activation suggests that the very act of hurting others is intrinsically rewarding, triggering a release of pleasure-related neurotransmitters, like dopamine. Reduced empathy response. Simultaneously, the areas responsible for processing others' pain are less responsive, confirming a dampened empathetic mechanism that allows the reward circuit to function unimpeded during cruel acts. In essence, the sadistic brain is wired to process the suffering of others not as a signal for empathy, but as a cue for reward. The role of vicarious sadism. It's also important to note the concept of vicarious sadism, which is the enjoyment derived from fictional or mediated violence. The popularity of gruesome video games, horror movies, or aggressive sports may sometimes tap into this trait. While most people who enjoy violent media are not sadists, those high in trait sadism report greater enjoyment and immersion in media where they get to witness or perpetrate violence, providing a socially acceptable outlet for their desire to harm.